Well, hello there and welcome to the channel, and in this video we're going to be talking about which trees and shrubs you should never be cutting in February, and I'll tell you the reasons why, although there is one caveat to one plant that you shouldn't be cutting in February that I like to do, so we'll get into that in a minute. Now, the reason for this question being asked in this video is because I was listening to Gardener's Question Time on Radio 4, and something caused me to start shouting at the radio. So there's a risk warning here that I might go into a rant. Anyway, there was a lovely lady from the Women's Institute, and she was saying, when should I tidy up my garden? Should I tidy up in the autumn, the winter, or should I leave it until the spring? And one of the hosts said, oh no, you should leave everything on the ground because it's good for nature and it will reduce the damage to the topsoil through micro compaction of the rain. And people on the radio, what happened to Gardener's World of old when you used to get sensible, experienced advice being sent over the airwaves? So it made me think, that poor dear woman on the WI. So she was advised to leave all the planty mess in the garden until the spring, start working in the spring. So in my mind, I then had an image of all these lovely women going around just chopping everything back. But the trouble is, as I said in the beginning, there are a number of trees and shrubs that you should not be cutting back at this time of year because it's going to give you problems, not only pest and disease problems, it's going to give you non-flowering problems. And we'll get into it. It won't take us too long because I'm just going to zip through it quickly. Otherwise, we'll be here all day. Anyway, let's get on with it. Let's get on with those shrubs that you should not be cutting in February. So what I'm going to talk about mainly at first is going to be those plants that flower on the previous season's wood. So if you are going to start cutting those plants this year, then you are going to be removing the growth on that plant that is going to produce the new flower buds. So wherever you cut those plants, you're going to be removing this year's flowering display. And there are quite a few plants that come under this, and we'll go through them quickly, one by one. The first one, philadelphus. Now, we've got philadelphus here. This one is Belle Etoile, which is a lovely white flower with a sort of pink star on the inside. And as you can see, this time of year is basically a bundle of sticks. Now, they do have quite an untidy habit, and they will put out these extending branches from last year. The trouble is, if you cut all of this, which has happened here, then you are not going to get any flowering whatsoever. And this is one of the issues with philadelphus. Because it looks like such an ungodly mess, jobbing gardeners will almost always cut these back down in the spring. Because of that, you rarely see philadelphus in bloom. So and that is such a shame, because it is an absolutely beautiful display and really well fragrant. So philadelphus, no, you do not cut that in February. Stop. Right, now, I filmed that philadelphus yesterday, and today someone's come in and they've cut off all of last year's growth. That means no flowers again for another year. Oh, you flipping kidding me? Bloody people. We are talking about camellias, and I've been banging on about the problems with cutting camellias at the wrong time of year in many videos, and it's typical again. You have the big buds. They take a very long time to be produced. You know, you're talking about 10-11 months in some cases, and the new flower buds are produced immediately after flowering, so it takes them such a long time to grow and then come out into flower. So if you cut camellias in February, at least for those that haven't already flowered, then again you'd be cutting away that spring display. Now, it's pretty obvious on some camellias. Let me show you this one here. You see, you've got some really obvious big buds showing here. So hopefully, unless you are a little bit stupid, you wouldn't think to cut this now. But let me show you another one. This one here, this is black lace, and there are buds on it. It's just not as obvious as on that earlier plant that I just showed you. So if you do come out here and start cutting, like I say, all you're going to be doing is removing all the bud. And you might think that is obvious, but believe me, time and time again I see these buds being taken off because someone's been sent out. Usually some good-willed husband doing his wife's bidding has gone out to tidy up the garden and just completely wrecked the spring display. Now, if you are finding the information in this video useful or perhaps just mildly amusing and you'd like to pass it on, then by all means press the like button. It supports this channel immensely and helps us do what we do. Don't forget, you can also click onto the subscription button. Subscription is absolutely free and you can unsubscribe at any time. It doesn't cost you anything, and if you want to be notified whenever we publish a new video, then all you need to do is click on that notification bell. Anyway, let's continue to find out what old Boyle Belt has to say. And the same can be said for all those ericaceous sort of plants, and I know they're not all from the ericaceous family, but you look, so you got camellias, as I said, you got rhododendrons, you got azaleas, which are no longer called azaleas, they're also now grouped into the rhododendron genus. In fact, if you do see rhododendrons, the flowering shoots are much more pronounced. Let me show you. See, that's pretty clear that that's a big flower bud on that. But on azaleas, those terminal flower buds, they just are not as pronounced. And again, it could be easy to see why someone would shape an azalea, which is common practice in Japan. But of course, they would be trimming immediately after flowering again, and not in February. Now, your lilacs, like your cultivars of Syringa vulgaris, again, they take a long time in order to produce that flower bud. They'll be producing those last year, and again, if you start cutting those this year in February, then you're going to destroy that lovely early blooms. And the same goes for ribes, which are your flowering currants, and your forsythias, named after, I think, the great grandfather of Brucey Forsyth, God rest his soul. So with those, you can. It's not too easy. It's not so easy to see because the buds will be swelling, but they're not noticeable unless you're really familiar with it. I can show you on the Forsythia. Now, I'll get a bit close. You can see these big fat buds being produced in pairs. Now, these next plants are your Spiraea, which I don't believe I've ever spoken about in any of my videos up till now. But there are two species and the cultivars of they need to be aware of, and this is where my caveat comes in, which I said about earlier. The spectacular Arguta and bridal reef being far better, are absolutely wonderful, and you would cut those back immediately after flowering, so come the new season this year, it will flower on the previous season's wood. But the Japonicas, you can cut those last year after flowering. You can cut them in the autumn, you can cut them in the spring, because they produce some absolutely stunning foliage plants. That foliage looks, it's that fresh foliage that looks absolutely truly amazing. So if you cut that now, then you get that massive flush of bright foliage, and to me that is a better display than its flowers. It will bloom, it just bloom a lot later than you would expect. So Spireas, yes and no. Arguta cultivars, you do not cut in the spring, but the Spireas, if you want to cut those in the spring, I will allow it, governor. Right, now the last plant I'm going to be talking about, or group of plants I'm going to be talking about with regards to removing last year's growth, which will have this year's flowering bud on it, are your rambling roses, not your climbing roses, which you cut back to a frame in the spring. Better off doing that in the autumn winter. It's getting on a bit late now. But your regular roses, like your hybrid teas, your floribundas, your shrub roses, they can all be cut. They can all be cut now. But rambling roses, no, absolutely not. The rambling roses, they all flower on the previous season's wood, so you would really sort of do a slight trim at most, but and you would do that after flowering last year. But to cut anything off a rambling rose now, you'll be removing this year's display. And with all these plants, of course, you can remove dead, diseased, dying wood, crossing wood, because those crosses could rub and create more wounds. They can open up infections. They can be applied now to all these things, and there are going to be other plants as well, which if you want to put those in the comments, because I haven't included them in my list, you're more than welcome to do so. But to finish off, it's trees that you definitely cannot plant now. It's not so much to do with flowering, it's to do with disease and infections through fungal and bacteria. And these are your trees from the Prunus family. So we're talking cherries, plums, apricots, nectarines, gages. You cut them now. During this damp, cold, wet weather, you have a massively increased risk of infection through bacterial canker and also through silver leaf. So you never cut those trees. Now, you never do it. The only time I did those is in the driest part of the year, which is going to be over the summer. Not in the summer after it's rained, it needs to be dry. That is the rule. So with that in mind, I think I've finished. Those are all the trees and shrubs that you should avoid cutting in February. And if there is anything that you would like to add, you are more than welcome to do so. Put that in the comments. We would love to hear from you. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thank you for watching this far, and hopefully we'll see you again in the next video. Goodbye. Right, now, just before you go, if you want to see more content, more behind the scenes stuff, and images that I've taken of some weird freaky plants over the years, then you're in luck, because we've created an Instagram page. So you can find the link in our description. You can find the link on our main page, and if I'm clever enough, I might be able to get a link somewhere up there. Anyway, thank you for watching, and if you want to see more YouTube stuff, then check out this video here. That's quite a good one. And if it doesn't float your boat, then another one right there. And enjoy these while I've still got the strength, imagination and aptitude to make them. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.